You're listening to Kate Palmer from sparkletart.com. Today I'm going to show you how to make a cupcake embellishment from paper clay. Now this will be useful when you need a flat embellishment that you can use on scrapbooks or card projects or anything where something flat rather than something 3D is required. I'm using Crayola Model Magic in white as my paper clay. I found this one to dry particularly well and hold its shape, and I have a few cutting blades that I can use. Now the first step is to take a little of the paper clay out of the packet and roll it into a ball in your hands and knead out any air bubbles. Then use a small rolling pin or a plastic bottle, roll the paper clay until it makes a flat shape large enough to cut your design from. And then use whatever cutting tools you have available to cut out the paper liner for the cupcake. I happen to have clay cutting blades. You might just need to do this with a craft blade. Either way, what you need to do is a slight curved line for the base, two angled lines for the edges, and sort of a ridged line so that your base of your cupcake looks like it's sort of concertinaed or ridged. Next, take a wooden kitchen skewer and use it to create the ridges in the paper clay. As it dries, these ridges will stay. At this point, I've decided that the cupcake base is a little too wide, so I've just used my craft blade to cut off a little excess. Roll any leftovers to make a new ball, and roll this out with, again, the rolling pin or a plastic tube to make a flat elliptical shape that's about the same size as the base. Using the tip of the skewer or a toothpick, roughly draw your muffin top or cupcake top onto the paper clay that you've just rolled out, and then cut this out with a craft knife to make the shape for your cupcake or muffin top. Use any further leftovers to create the candle and the flame to go on top of your muffin or cupcake. This will need to dry somewhere flat for between 12 and 24 hours. It takes that long for the moisture to evaporate. So leave it overnight at least, longer if you can, before painting it or colouring it. So my pieces of air dry clay have set, they're all dry. And I've got the cupcake top, the flame, and the little cupcake bottom. So I'm just going to spray the cupcake bottom with Rizzo's Rowdy Red to begin with. I'm just going to dry this layer off with a heat gun before I go any further, otherwise it could get a bit messy. Next is a bit of Flying Monkey Midnight, but instead of spraying this on, I'm just going to sort of dab it on here. And now I'm just going to add some more of the Rizzo's Rowdy Red. This basically will just darken up the colour. And I'll just need to dry this step with the heat gun as well before going on to my final colour. And now I'm going to add something special. This is one of the new Starburst sprays from Lindy Stamp Gang. It's called Frozen Jack Frost, and it's a white with a shimmer. So what should happen is that the dye from the previous layers soaks through the white and makes it pink. Dry this layer off with the heat gun as well. It's not the kind of thing where you want to leave wet liquid sitting on this for very long. So you just need to leave it to cool and completely dry again before moving on to the next step. So while my cupcake base, which is now looking very yummy and a little bit more realistic with a bit more variation in colour, so while this is drying, I'll go and do the top of my cupcake. So to make the frosted cupcake top, I've just broken the little candle off here. I'm going to be using some Viva modelling cream and the dark chocolate truffle magicals from Lindy Stamp Gang. And what I'm going to do is, using a little palette knife, just going to dip into my modelling cream here, and into this I'm going to mix some of the magicals. Before I mix this, I'm going to give it one tiny quick spritz of water just to activate the dye in the magicals. Okay, maybe two. And then I'm going to smoosh these around a little, just until the modelling cream and the magicals are fully mixed. Now the modelling cream has a satin finish and the magicals of course have that gorgeous sparkle. So what I'm getting here is a mixture of the shimmer and the satin. It's really quite yummy. Doesn't look much like chocolate, but it's gorgeous to look at. Okay, I'm going to apply that to my little cupcake top here. And this will be my chocolate frosting. Now before I get too carried away, I'm going to have to make sure I've applied it to the edges as well, because you might see those on the finished card. Alright, so once you've applied the chocolate frosting to your cupcake, you now need to try and make it look a little bit realistic. So I'm just going to be using the edge of my palette knife here to add some frosting marks. And of course you'll need to leave the frosted chocolate cupcake to dry. The main two pieces of my cupcake are now dry. So I have the bottom section, which was created using the Starburst sprays
and flat Fabios,
and this top section, which looks surprisingly like yummy frosted chocolate with all of the texture that you can see from the modelling cream. Probably a bit more satiny than a real one, but still. Is nice and dry and ready to use. Now all I need is something for the muffin in the middle. It almost matches, I just need something in here. And for that I'm going to use texture paste. So I've just mixed some light modelling paste with a little of the chocolate in the Scrapbook colours and the dark chocolate truffle, and I've mixed it to a little paste inside here, and then with a little palette knife I've applied it to the top of the muffin.
Because I'm using light moulding paste, it will retain whatever texture you give it at this point when dry.
So if you'd like it smooth, you need to make it smooth now. If you'd like it textured, you need to make it textured about now. Now the next thing to do is to add the muffin top, and you need to do this while the underneath is still wet so that they fit together properly. You're going to need to nestle one into the other.
It's not a bad thing that the moulding paste mixture is bulging a little here, because that's what the real muffin would do, so it looks a bit more realistic.
And this latest section will need to dry. I'm going to paint the candle with Freaky Franken lime, but I'm going to make it a really light application. So just a little bit of water, tiny little bit of Freaky Franken lime, and just spread that colour over the top. Now I'm going to make sure that there's a bit more of the colour in those little tiny depressions, just so that you get the texture showing through. So a little bit more in those tiny depressions, and that's it for the candle. So a really light wash of the magicals in Freaky Franken lime. For the flame I'm going to use Poinsettia red and Yellow Rose of Texas.
The Poinsettia red is going on the outside, and the Yellow Rose of Texas will be the centre of the flame.
And this is how I've used the cupcake.
So I've got the cupcake base here that I've made with those multiple layers of flat Fabios and a final layer of Starburst. I love how it's ended up with this gorgeous chalky finish.
I've got in here the dark chocolate truffle magical
that's been mixed with the texture paste. And this is the one that I thought would turn out without sparkle. I don't know if you can see here. It's got the most wonderful satiny finish, and it looks very much like chocolate. It's fantastic. Now, of course, the icing was made with the same colour Magicals and the Viva Decor Modeling Creme, and you can really see the difference between the two products. So this one's turned out rich and satiny. This one's really toned down the colour to a much paler brown and given it a shiny appearance. So just yummy and gorgeous. Really different between all the products, between layering them, mixing them with texture paste and mixing them with modelling cream. You can see how versatile these are. Now then, of course, you've got the little candle. This one is direct onto the air dry clay. Got the little flame here. I hope you can see how gorgeous and shimmery that really is. So I hope you've enjoyed seeing how I created my Lindy's Stamp Gang Blog Hop birthday cupcake, and I'll be back soon with more.
Thanks so much for watching and have a wonderful day. Bye.